Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell with news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, August 24th, 2017. I want, first of all, before I get into today, it's a weird week of news, and I've been under the weather. A lot of you have been commenting on where's Joseph. There haven't been any vlogs in a week. I'm planning to start up the vlogs again this Saturday, folks, because I've been under the weather all week. Needed a rest. I think part of the problem was doing the last book so quickly. I think it just finally caught up to me. So anyway, we are having news and views today. We do have a vid chat tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time for all of our European members. So the vid chat is on. Blogs will resume Saturday. Okay. Anyway, that's what's been going on here. The Nefarium has been busy, and this week's story is gold. And I have to tell you, folks, I don't know what to make of this. I have a lot of speculations about why all these announcements about gold come out at the same time that Trump decides he wants to play empire builder, just like all the previous presidents, and send more troops to Afghanistan to secure the drug and opium, make Afghanistan safe for democracy, which is essentially what I think is going on, which may be tied to today's story. But anyway, I've linked 3 articles for this, and I have to wonder exactly what's going on here. And quite frankly, folks, I think it's deeply related to at least 2 theses that I've had in the past few years. One, the hidden system of finance, which is reliant upon all of that looted gold from Asia, Operation Golden Lily, that the Japanese and, frankly, the Nazis during World War II resorted to. And I think it's related to the bearer bond scandals, and secondly, second part of this, I think it's related to this weird covert economic war that appears to be going on right now between, and has been for some time, between the United States and Germany. So here we go. First up is this short Zero Hedge article that appeared on the 22nd, 2 days ago, Tuesday. The title of the article is Minuchin visits Fort Knox, says gold is safe. And I like to call him Munchkin. One of my emails from somebody that sent this article also likes to call him Munchkin. So we're just going to call him Munchkin. Secretary of the Treasury Stephen Munchkin had a busy day today, shortly after warning once again that a U.S. debt ceiling deal has to be done by late September, or the country would run out of cash and suffer a technical default, roughly around the time he hinted that Trump may keep carried interest tax breaks for some firms that create jobs. Skipping a bunch here. I assume the gold is still there, Munchkin told an audience in Louisville, Kentucky, some 40 miles north of the biggest U.S. bullion depository, except, of course, for the foreign gold stash at the New York Federal Reserve. It would really be quite a movie if we walked in and there was no gold, unquote. It's unclear if Munchkin was envisioning a comedy or a drama. After the visit, Munchkin, who was the first U.S. Treasury Secretary to visit Fort Knox in nearly 70 years, playfully reassured the Americans the treasure was still secure. Gold is safe, he wrote in a post on Twitter. And skipping towards the end of this article, we have approximately $200 billion worth of gold at Fort Knox, said Munchkin. The last time anybody went in to see the gold, other than the Fort Knox people, was in 1974 when there was a congressional visit. And I remember this, folks, and remember what happened. Congress wanted to do an audit of the gold. What Congress was told they could do was they could go into one bin and look at the gold and assay it. So in other words, they were not shown the entire bullion depository. They were only allowed to go into one bin. All right. And prior to that, the last time the gold was counted, this again is Secretary Munchkin, was 1953. Okay, now what does that tell you? I don't know about you, but when the US government tells me something, I take it with as much credibility as I believe in the magic bullet theory. Now, note, the last time a full audit was done was 1953. This was a few years after President Truman took the decision to recover all of that Japanese loot and gold, particularly from Operation Golden Lily, and keep it a state secret. In other words, make it a trust fund, a deeply black covert action, black budget, secret research projects slush fund. All right. So in other words, this is not even the black budget. In my estimation, this hidden system of finance was entirely off the books. Now, the question that I've had because of these gold stories, we'll get back to this in a moment, is where would all that gold be kept? All right, that's a huge question, because if you've been following my thinking about this whole question, this whole system, I've even voiced the opinion that the actual official estimates of gold in the world might be off, possibly by as much as an order of magnitude. In other words, the gold that they say is there and the gold that's actually there may be off by an order of magnitude. In other words, there might be a lot more gold than they're saying, or a lot less gold than they're saying. All right, now, with that in the mind, let's go to the second article. This is from Agence France, and this story appeared on the 23rd, in other words, yesterday. So in other words, this French article is from yesterday. Again, the title, All of Germany's Gold Returned from French Vaults. 2 or 3 paragraphs I want to draw your attention to here. The Bundesbank, Germany's central bank, said Wednesday it had returned to German soil all of its gold kept in Paris and some reserves from the U.S. 3 years ahead of schedule. Some 374 tons of the metal, 11% of the German stock, left the vaults at the Banque de France, or the Bank of France, while 300 tons have been removed from the Federal Reserve in New York to the Bundesbank vaults in Frankfurt, board member Karl Ludwig Thiele told journalists. Skipping. The Bundesbank responded to the calls for greater transparency. Recall the German efforts back in 2012 and 13 to audit and repatriate German gold. All right, and that kicked off a movement of other countries at least wanting partial repatriation of some of their gold, so I suspect, so that they could assay it and test the fineness. The Netherlands, Austria, Venezuela, and some other countries joined this scramble to repatriate its gold. The Bundesbank responded to those calls for greater transparency by bringing a larger share home. After extensive tests upon arrival, there were no issues with the authenticity, fineness, or weight of the bars, Thiele said. Germany holds the second largest gold reserves after the United States at 3,378 tons, or approximately 270,000 ingots, weighing around 12 kilograms each, for a market value of around 120 billion euros. Some 1,710 tons are now kept, that's approximately half of Germany, a little over half of Germany's gold reserves, are now kept in Frankfurt, with 1,236 tons remaining in New York and 432 in London. So in other words, France took the biggest hit and Germany emptied all of its gold reserves from France. Keep that little fact in mind. Now we're going to go back to Zero Hedge. Another article from yesterday that ends with a very, very significant question. I want to read just a few articles, paragraphs from this. Quote, the article title is German Central Bank Completes Repatriation of $28 billion in Gold 3 years ahead of schedule. And I'm quoting now from a few paragraphs into this article. The real reasons, however, is that following several reports on this website which cast doubts on Germany's gold holdings, in late 2012, the German Court of Auditors demanded that the Bundesbank undertake an audit of its gold reserves. Specifically, the court wanted to ensure the nearly 3,400 tons of gold, of which more than 2,000 tons was held offshore, was in fact in existence because stocks had never been checked for authenticity and weight. The move, now think about that, folks. This is going back to the founding of the West German Federal Republic after World War II, the economic miracle, and so on and so forth, when Germany began building up its gold reserves. All right. Because of that, we have again a time frame, the economic miracle getting underway in the 1950s, right about the same time that the United States had its last audit of gold in the United States Bullion Depository at Fort Knox. So in other words, Germany didn't audit in that time period. The United States didn't audit during that time period from 1953 up to today. And those are the two largest holders of gold reserves in the world, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but that makes me just a tad suspicious. All right, continuing. Even more ironic is that, speaking to Forbes, a Bundesbank spokesman said in January of 2013 that we have no intention to sell gold, adding that, quote, the relocation is in case of a currency crisis, unquote. A mildly paradoxical argument, since the officially stated reason for the repatriation of gold was, quote, to build trust and confidence domestically and to have its ability to sell gold quickly if needed. Now, let me stop and suggest that, yeah, that's part of it, because as you probably all know, the euro's in trouble, all right? And Germany is, like it or not, the center of the Eurozone and the center of the European project. So in other words, the gold repatriation may be either an attempt to prop up the euro, or if the Eurozone falls apart, if the European Union falls apart, if Italy leaves or Spain leaves or what have you, in other words, a major economy, if that happens, then it's back to the Deutschmark, okay? And gold would be a nice thing to have around to make sure that the currency was accepted. Anyway, to continue. Quote, the news should not come, pardon me, speaking about the gold being repatriated 3 years earlier than anticipated, quote, the news should not come as a surprise. Back in February, the Bundesbank announced that it had already concluded that the transfer of all the gold planned from New York, leaving only French gold to be repatriated, and as of today, that too has been completed. Skipping. In the spring of 2018, the Bundesbank will publish an updated version of its gold bar list at 31 December 2017 on its website. And so, Germany's repatriation of 674 tons of gold, or 53,780 bars of gold, is complete, lifting the amount of gold held domestically to 1,710 tons, or 50.6% of the German reserve total. Going forward, Germany will still have 1,236 tons held at the New York Federal Reserve and another 430 tons of gold held at the Bank of England. London and Washington have Germany under its thumb. Paris doesn't. Why this unexpected scramble to repatriate $28 billion in physical gold 3 years ahead of schedule remains a mystery. Now, with that question, Zero Hedge has really, I think, hit the nail on the head, and I'm going to speculate here. First of all, as I pointed out at the beginning of all this, I suspect that this whole story is somehow related to what I've been calling the hidden system of finance, and to two phenomena, all right? One of those phenomena is the use by the United States of recovered Japanese bullion deposits after World War II in a completely secret and hidden system of finance. And that system, in turn, I think is deeply related to the bearer bonds scandals, the gold-backed bearer bonds scandals that everybody else dismisses as complete hogwash. This is simply a scam. It's a counterfeiting scheme, and so on and so forth. The amounts of money are astronomical. There's no way that any of these bonds are real. They're counterfeit. Well, folks, my argument against that is you don't counterfeit a $7 bill. You don't go to all the expense of a major counterfeiting operation simply to counterfeit something that does not exist. All right. So in other words, the bearer bond scandals to me have always pointed to a hidden system of finance. Now, why is that important? Because when these countries start their repatriation, there's several things that they're trying to check. The weight and fineness of the gold, but also they're trying to get an idea on how much gold is out there and how easy it would be to repatriate it. Now, if gold has been rehypothecated, actual physical gold in the central bank vaults, if that gold has been rehypothecated several times, it would be very difficult to do that unless there were sources of gold completely off the books. Germany has repatriated its gold 3 years ahead of schedule, so we're told. Now, the other question then is why? Are they getting antsy about this hidden system of finance? Well, I suspect there's possibly several reasons here. Number one, I've been advocating for a few years that there is some sort, it looks to me, of quiet, covert economic war going on between the United States and Germany. Why? Well, for one thing, the Russian sanctions hit Germany as hard, if not harder, than they hit Russia. Okay? Now, Germany has a much bigger economy than Russia, and therefore they're not quite as affected, but certainly they are affected by it. So that's number one, and Germany getting its gold back is, I think, partially a step. Now, the real question is, why doesn't Germany repatriate all of its gold, or at least significant amounts of that gold, from London and the New York Federal Reserve? And I'm kind of waiting for that shoe to drop. We'll see. If that economic warfare model is true, then we should expect them to quietly repatriate some gold back from New York and back from London. So that will be the signal that that might be in play. The other thing going on here is the common European military and who gets to play Charlemagne. Germany and France, of course, have been advocating for this for some time, and if you've been following the news, they've been putting into place the steps to create that common European military. Germany is already integrating foreign units into the German military, into the Bundeswehr. This is already happening as we speak. They're not waiting for France to make up its mind to decide on who gets to play Charlemagne. And trust me, folks, in the end, I think it will be Germany. All right? I think this is part of it. I think the gold leverage is part of it. But now I want to leave you with two speculations, or rather two questions. There does appear to be something going on here with Minuchin even calling attention. How much gold is really there? In other words, this is very strange behavior. We have not seen this from a U.S. Secretary of the Treasury in a long time. So they're trying to draw attention to the gold, and the question is why? Now, my hypothesis is that there is a lot more gold in existence than we have been told, all right? And yes, if you have a secret gold reserve, you can also rehypothecate that gold over and over and over. And I think this is also the reason why you see Russia and China buying so much gold. Yeah, they have an intention to back currencies with gold, all right? That's the public explanation. The private secret explanation is, I suspect, they're wanting to test the markets to see just how much gold may actually be there, all right? And it's very, very weird if you look at things in that way. Now, I suspect the other thing that we have to start asking ourselves is, if there is so much gold that is completely off the books, how's it being stored? Where are the bullion depositories? And I want you to notice recently we've seen American states setting up bullion depositories. And I also strongly suspect there's a relation between all of this and the drug trade, because as I pointed out in my books, the term gold is also code in these underground systems of finance for drugs. All right. So there's an entanglement here between gold and drugs and these bearer bonds that I don't think yet anybody has really figured out. The big players in this, the world powers, United States, Germany, Russia, China, and so on, these countries are playing, I think, with this hidden system, or at least trying to probe its actual depths. There's another story here I'm suggesting behind the scenes that's going on with these gold stories. Now, my guesses may be wildly off the mark. Your guess is probably as good as mine on this score. But this is a story that's been going on for several years. I think it's still one to watch. If you see any clues, by all means, share them with me. Anyway, again, my apologies, folks, for having been under the weather for the last week. I will resume blogging on Saturday. We do have the vid chat tomorrow afternoon, so please don't forget that. And I'll see everybody on the flip side. Bye-bye.